He's also represented some leading excessive force cases. He either served in a co-counsel capacity or an advisor to the families. Some of these cases you've probably heard of. That would be Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo, Eric Garner, stop and frisk cases where he implemented and worked with, I would say, influenced legislation. So Michael has had a very, very far reach. And some of these other attorneys that do a lot of the civil rights attorney work, Ben Crump. When you see Ben Crump, when you see Nan. When you see Nan, there's Michael Hardy. So, and that's the path and the road that I think that I'm going to take the direction of my paper, and this is what this is about this evening. I said, instead of bringing the judges, let's make this about the multi-facets of Michael Hardy. I hope you each have a program and you'll sort of see him in his different capacities. Thank you for joining us today. I think you're going to have a wonderful, wonderful time and you'll learn a lot. You get a lot of good information. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Judge Edwards. Our next speaker, can you hear me? I'd like to. We okay now? We're good? Okay. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Not only is he the New York County Clerk, but he's the Commissioner of Jurors in New York County. And it's really my pleasure to be on the same panel as him. I've spoken with him in the past. It's always an honor, really, to be on the same stage as him. And he's going to speak a little about Michael Hardy and in his role as a civil rights attorney. And it's really my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Justice Milton Tingling.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yo, this is a tough one. It's an honor to be here tonight for Michael. But I also know that there's so many others that should have been here to speak for him. But I'm going to speak tonight. Michael Hardy. And I'm supposed to speak tonight about Michael Hardy as a civil rights attorney. So I have a confession for you. I didn't know Michael as well as I wanted to. Never been to his house. Never went out and with him and his wife, his family, dating. I didn't know so much about who Michael Hardy was, but I damn sure know what Michael Hardy was. And everybody here that had any interaction with Michael Hardy knows what Michael Hardy was. So, what was Michael Hardy? I've been tasked tonight to speak about Michael Hardy, civil rights attorney. Really? So what is a civil rights attorney? When you think about civil rights attorney, you heard the Honorable Sinceria Edwards say. The history. You think of civil rights attorneys, who do you think of? You think of Thurgood Marshall. You think of Constance Baker Motley. You think about Robert Carter. You think about the stories. You think about the history. And so I got to thinking, what is a civil rights attorney? And I came up with this list. And I was like, you got to check boxes. Okay, so let's go through it. Let's go through what a civil rights attorney is. All right? So let's start with number one. In order to be a civil rights attorney, you have to be fearless. You have to be fearless in the face of injustice. It doesn't mean you don't have fear. But you have to be fearless when faced with injustice. So, was Michael Hardy, did he check that box?
Yes.
Well, speak up.
Yes.
Thank you. In order to be a civil rights attorney, you have to inspire. are or want to be civil rights attorneys. You have to inspire them to join with you. Look at this panel. You heard from Joel. You have to be able to inspire others to what it is that you are doing. And so, we got another box. And I ask you again, was Michael Hardy a civil rights attorney?
Yes.
You know how you might ask somebody something and they will tell you, I can't. Well, you know what? That's a lie. Because the truth is most of the time they can, but they don't. Or they can, but they won't.
That's right.
But they don't tell you that. They tell you, oh, I can't. Michael Hardy, when faced with an issue, he didn't tell you he couldn't.
I will.
Thank you.
Yes.
He said that I will, and I can, and I am.
That's right.
So, was Michael Hardy a civil rights attorney?
Yes. 110%.
There you go. Michael and I shared some things. And some of those things were, we had both parents in our household. We have parents that believed in education. They sacrificed and sent us to some of the best schools in this country. Michael didn't have to be a civil rights attorney.
That's right.
Does everybody understand that? He didn't have to be a civil rights attorney. He chose to be a civil rights attorney. He chose to do this. And why did he do it? I asked him. Like I said, never been to his house didn't mean we didn't share a drink. Every now and then or more often, but that's another story. And I asked him, as we found out more about each other, and I asked him, I said, why? And I can't tell you that he gave me an answer that I could understand at the moment. But his answer to me that night was, because I am. Think about that. Because he simply was. And so when I got word that Michael was ill, you know, it hits you on a professional and a personal level. The man inspired me. He inspired me. Got another civil rights attorney for you. Civil rights attorney loses most of their cases. Oh yeah, that's the reality. So tell me, who amongst us goes in knowing I'm going to lose most of the time? Because a civil rights attorney puts in the work. And they do it knowing that the fruits of their labor, that the manifestation of their work may not come in their lifetime.
That's right.
You heard Judge Edwards speak about it. Michael Hardy was working back in the day where our children could be tried as adults at age 13. That's right. And do you know what we have today? We have raised the age. It's law.
That's right.
Michael Hardy was working on this 20, 25 years ago when nobody was out there talking about, you know, we got to protect our children. At age 13, come on. A civil rights attorney has to put in that work knowing they may not see it in their lifetime. So I ask you again, was Michael Hardy a civil rights attorney?
Yes. Yes.
I miss Michael.
Yeah. We all agree.
I know. And that bonds us together. And the only real tribute that we can give to Michael is to recognize his work.
That's right.
Is to continue his work. And to do it from the same frame of mind that he had.
Yeah.
So tonight, I'm on grandpa duty. I got my 7-year-old, and I apologize because I'm going to have to go. But when I was leaving tonight, my granddaughter is 7 years old. Okay, and you know what they like accepting. They not only think they know everything, they do know everything. So she asked me, she said, Grandpa, I thought you were hanging out with me tonight. I said, well, that's something I gotta do. Okay? And so she said, where are you going? What are you doing? And I said, I'm going tonight because I have the honor, the privilege, the joy of speaking on behalf of a warrior. And she said, what's a grandpa? What's a warrior? And I said, a warrior is somebody that fights on behalf of others to enhance them, not to enhance themselves. And so she said, well, who is this? And I said, his name is Michael Hardy. And she said, who is this? And I said, baby girl, I gotta go. I don't have time really to tell you. But I give you my word. When I get home, she's going to find out. And she's going to know who Michael Hardy was. And my prayer is that 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, she will be speaking Michael Hardy's name. Because she will know who he is. Because he was my warrior, he was your warrior, he was our warrior. God bless you, Michael.
You know, I'm really honored right now to introduce the next speaker, the next judge. She's a person of many talents. Not only is she a brilliant legal scholar, she's on the appellate division, and for those of us that don't know that, or you don't know that, the appellate division hears different points of law when attorneys, and reasonable minds can always differ in terms of how the law should be applied, what the law is. And she's here on the appellate division in New York County, First Department. And as I said before, a person of many talents. I understand also that she's quite a singer, but she won't sing for us tonight. Maybe another time, but not tonight. Not tonight. Tonight she's going to speak really about Michael Hardy and Michael being a leader and being an author. And it's really a privilege to introduce the Honorable Tanya Kennedy.
Nan family and friends, good evening. First, let me say that I'm honored to be here, and I want to thank you, Justice Edwards, and the Nan leadership for inviting me to take a part of this tribute. But before I do that, since I'm a part of the Nan family, I want to take a moment of personal privilege. The last time I saw Michael was at the Sheridan during the convention. And we indicated that we were going to have a lunch date at my chambers. I was going to follow up. Did I follow up? No. Did not follow up. There's a lesson in that. And the lesson is life is short. You can't take anyone or anything for granted. So when we see people and we're going to say, let's get together, let's have lunch, whatever it is, let's do it. Because I certainly missed out on not connecting with Michael Hardy. And so in the next few minutes, we all know that he's a civil rights attorney. But I want to take the next few minutes to talk about Michael Hardy, the leader. Michael Hardy, the educator. And Michael Hardy, the author. Michael Hardy was a prolific writer, thought leader, and educator. Now, the person coming after me, Attorney Royce Russell, is going to talk to you about one of those books by Michael A. Hardy, and that was Constitutional Policing. But I'm not going to steal Mr. Russell's thunder. But there is a portion that I must read to highlight Michael A. Hardy, and just a portion of it. And the book is entitled Constitutional Policing, Striving for a More Perfect Union. And it was published by the American Bar Association. And just for a snippet, that book examined the issues of policing in America and the pathways to achieve a level of constitutional policing that begins to address how our diverse nation and the communities we live in can become more safer, more equitable, and more respectful of our differences. I'm going to pause there because Mr. Russell is going to pick it up where I left off. But one of, to me, of the things that he used his platform for was this connection between the importance in historical context and factual accuracy in discussions about civil rights leaders and events, particularly emphasizing the importance of truth in civil rights discourse. And he used his platform to hold leaders accountable for the words they use and how those words are used. But he also spoke about the importance of voting rights. Now, when I came here a couple of months ago for Women's History Month, I talked about how everyone in this room is powerful. And the power is in the vote. And I stopped it right there because I like my job and I'm going to keep my job. And I didn't tell you who to vote for or what party, but the fact that you have the power. Now, Michael Hardy talked about how you can leverage that power, educating the marginalized, the underrepresented, about how to raise your voice. And so the writings focused on racial justice, historical accuracy, and leadership in the context of civil rights advocacy. But let me say something. You know, a lot of times when we talk about a leader, we talk about titles. Might I suggest that leadership has more to do with a person's values than the title? And so when we talk about Michael Hardy, why was he a leader? Because of his values. Speaking truth to power, giving people agency. And so his writings, I do everything on my phone, forgive me, but his writings, his legacy is one of intellectual rigor, unwavering commitment to equality. Now, certainly as a jurist, I do not have my First Amendment rights. They are tempered. Some things I cannot say, but you can. So I ask you, the call to action, when we talk about voting rights, when we talk about accuracy, facts, hashtags, facts, the greatest way you can carry on Michael A. Hardy's legacy. Accuracy, facts. Speak up
That's right.
when your leaders are, you know, being, let's say, misrepresented. And certainly advocate, lift people up, inspire, empower. Make sure to have that lunch, cup of tea, or coffee. Michael A. Hardy, God bless you. Your legacy lives on.
Michael did so much for this community and for civil rights, as we all know. And one of the areas which he was active in was what we call constitutional policing. And Royce Russell, another member of the panel, another attorney that's spent a lot of time here at Legal Night, will discuss Michael and constitutional policing and issues of that nature. Royce?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Yes. All right. That's much better. Thank you. Good evening. So I have two assignments today. One is to talk about Michael Hardy in the light of the book called Constitutional Policing. But before I get to that, I want to talk about Michael Hardy, who he was and who he is. We heard about what a civil rights lawyer is. We heard about Michael Harding in the light of being an author. But I want to talk about Michael Harding in the light of who he is. So when we think of the term, or you think about our profession, there are three terms that come into mind. Most people say they're going to see their lawyer. When I hear that term, that sounds kind of heavy. It doesn't sound polite. It sounds like you got problems. When I hear the term attorney, sounds a little bit more professional, a little bit more social crust to it, and you might be taken care of. But there's one other term that is rarely used in our industry, but describes Michael Harding in so many different ways. And that term is a counselor of law. And I'm going to focus on the word counselor, because he was not only a counselor of the law, he was a counselor of life. And that's important, because when you think about attorneys, you think about what's the right answer. They're going to protect me. They're going to tell me what to do. And in the midst of our turmoil, we may forget that attorney is also a counselor. And they're there to counsel you. And that's what Michael Hardy did for many of the attorneys here. He definitely did it for me. And personally, as the good judge said before, I didn't spend a lot of time socially on the side in a more social environment. Most of the time we spent here. Most of the time we are on the phone. We may go to a game, baseball game, although I didn't like baseball, still don't. But Michael forced me to go to a game, and so did Mel, Mr. Smelkin. And so, I think the mic might be off. And so, in thinking about that, I think the mic is off, so we'll do. In thinking about that, I wanted to share with you how Michael counseled and the term that we had and we used together, and it was the phrase, my man. Now, my man seems like a very simple term. Is my man, right? We know what that means. And the first time I heard that term was this movie, Frank Lucas. And it's supposed to be a Harlem drug dealer, fact or fiction. And in times of conflict, he used the term, my man. I don't know where Michael got that phrase from, but the way he used that phrase was amazing. And what do I mean by that? When I was questioning about very high profile cases and who represent who and where and what state, and how other cases get overlooked because they may not be as sensationalized, but happens every single day. The kid that gets stopped on the street, which will affect that kid for the lifetime, even though that kid has never been injured. It may determine whether that kid becomes a police officer, whether that kid becomes a judge, whether that kid wants to even interact with police. Just that small stop, nothing major, no broken arms, no death. The kid that sees his family member stop and watch his parent or older brother humbled by the experience, nervous, uneased, that has an effect. And so we had this conversation about how it is so much about the normal life and not the sensationalized life that we really need to attack. And that's what NAM does, really attack the everyday. And so he posed to me, when people start to cite cases, some people are going to remember the attorneys that fought for those cases. But a lot of people are not. They're not going to remember who fought for Elvis Olivo, who had 2 broken arms and a broken hip. They're not going to know who that attorney was. They may not know even who the attorney that fought for Ramarley Graham, who died at the death of his grandmother. They're not going to remember that because maybe it didn't happen in their state. Maybe it was a time that happened that they can't remember. But what can they remember? And as Michael, the counselor of life, told me, is that they will remember the things that you can leave that can never be taken away, such as a book, a good book, an important book, a guide. And at that time that we were talking about that, I don't know if constitutional policing was even in his mind. I didn't know that. I was struggling with my own fears of writing a guide called Cardiac Arrest, a tactical guide on how to handle police misconduct. So I don't know if he forecasted, all right, you do this, and then I'm going to come back and see you later. He never shared that secret, but he guided me through that process. And after doing that and completing that book, he tapped me to say, I want you to help me with this book. I want you to write a chapter in this book. I was humbled and I was honored. Because as far as I see myself, I don't see myself as a legal beagle in the book citing case law. I see myself as just dealing with the practical stuff of life, trying to give an understanding of how we can all come together and deal with what we call either excessive force, police brutality, and things of that nature. And Michael, once again, guided me through that process, counseled me through that process. And this is where I heard the term "my man" used for the first time. I was struggling with, well, is it important to have a lot of big cases or to leave a legacy? There we go. Very temperamental. Or to leave a legacy in another way. And he counseled me through that. And so, as Michael, as you saw him here standing on every legal night, and as he tried to counsel us through things, that wasn't just for the moment. That was his life. That was a lifetime. And as he counseled me through that book, and as he counseled other attorneys that contributed to that book, it was a well-deserved experience. Because when I thought I couldn't write anymore, when I thought that the man went to the store, said it all. I said, Mike, the man went to the store. He's like, no, it's more in that sentence. No, I don't know what to tell you, Mike. The man went to the store. That's the end of the story. He got up and he went to the store. And having someone counsel you and force you to dig down and say to you, well, what was the man wearing? Was he running? Was he jogging? Was he walking? Have someone bring out the details is only reflective of the details that he used in his work, in winning those cases, in helping the wrong turn into right. And so I will always cherish Mike. I would always hope that you look at him and see him not as an attorney, because he didn't see himself as that, some professional, astute, social economic name that comes with someone that has achieved getting a Juris Doctorate, or a lawyer, someone that you feel burdened by, that you got to go see because you have problems. But you remember him as a counselor, because that's what he did every time he walked through these doors, whether coming or going, whether here or somewhere else. So I just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully we can live on and continue here at Legal Night counseling you guys and giving back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Royce Russell, for that. Okay, so let me shift gears a moment, and really for the benefit of those who are new here to Legal Night, we're going to talk a little about the history of Legal Night, how it evolved, really through Michael's guidance and through his leadership. And the story goes like this. Back in 2010, it's 14 years ago, right around this time, I remember I got a call from Mike. I had known him at that point for maybe 4 or 5 years, and told me that he and Reverend Sharpton were speaking about what type of program could be brought to this community, to this city, where people would have a place to go, where on a very informal basis, no questions asked, no strings attached, you'd have access to counsel, to attorneys. And we had a meeting. I was up over here with Mike, a couple of other attorneys, and we sat down and we spoke about what we really needed to do, what the commitment was. Commitment was very simple. We wanted people to have what we called an urban commitment, to help those who've been pushed aside, who've been underrepresented, and who've been discriminated against. It was always on a voluntary basis. We were going to get together with a bunch of attorneys. No charge, no obligation, no attorney ever sent the bill. We all had our day jobs. This was something which we decided needed to be done. It was the right thing to do. So we had that meeting, and we decided, well, we're going to make it consistent. It's going to be every Thursday night, the last Thursday of every month, with the exception, as I mentioned before, of August, November, and December. I remember this. It was just like yesterday. I hate to use that corny expression, but time did go by. And Legal Night, for those of you who hadn't been here before, and you will see, because when we start it up again, you're going to see what it is. It's a program in 3 parts. The first part will be, we have a featured speaker, one attorney generally, will speak about various issues or one specific issue that may come to mind that you would like to perhaps hear about. Over the years, these subjects, can you hear me in the back? Are we okay? Yes? All right. Am I on? Okay. We spoke about in the past divorce, custody, immigration, bankruptcy, estates, wills and trusts, powers of attorney, criminal law, housing issues, automobile accidents, what to do if you've been involved in an accident, what your rights and obligations are, getting hurt in a building, when you can sue your landlord for negligence, for personal injuries, getting hurt on a construction site, workers' compensation, discrimination, whether it's job discrimination, racial discrimination, sex-based discrimination. These were topics that we discussed. We discussed medical malpractice, housing issues, products liability, police liability, civil rights, false arrest, false imprisonment, malicious prosecution, excessive force. We also discussed over the years giving people tips and guidance. If you were a litigant, if you were a plaintiff in an accident case, advising people about that attorney-client privilege, which is a very important privilege, what you can expect from your attorney, what your attorney's got to do. And the flip side of the coin, you as a client, what your obligations are if you want to use our courts and process cases to process your and effectuate your legal rights. We spoke about video evidence, and nowadays everything's on video. Years ago, when I first started, we didn't have videos. You'd have some insurance investigator that would have some old reel-to-reel tape, and he'd take pictures of somebody, and that's how things were done. We have video evidence, and video evidence can make or break a case. We let people know about that. We spoke about also, and it's a topic that I enjoyed speaking about, and I spoke about it a few times over the past 10, 12, 15 years. And insurance adjusters' dirty tricks. Because, as I've always mentioned to people, if you're injured, if you have an accident, you go to a lawyer right away. You don't speak to an insurance company. It will try to twist and turn the facts. They're not your friends. You go seek legal advice. Your attorney will advise you of your legal rights. We also spoke about jury service. And over the years, we were fortunate to have, and you saw him before, Judge Tingling spoke about, as a guest speaker, spoke about jury service and told people the importance of jury service. And it's not something to get out of. It's something which is your civic duty, and you must take part in it. And it's very, very important. And you learned about that. You heard from the pros about that. So we would discuss these types of topics. The second topic Michael always wanted everybody to know that this is not just a forum for attorneys to beat their chests and to speak about what types of cases they've handled and what types of issues there are and what they feel comfortable with. We wanted this to be your platform as well. That's why for part two we had, and we're going to be able to, I think we'll have some time for this tonight also, for you to get up at the microphone to ask questions that may be of a general nature that's on your mind, or maybe you have a specific question. Maybe you have a case that you want to get some guidance on. Michael always told people that, you're being taped. This is a public forum. Don't say anything that can be used against you. You don't have to speak. He would always mention that to people. That was good advice. And that if you're active in a case, you keep things confidential. But sometimes you want to get up and you want to speak. You want to speak your mind. You want to speak about something which is bothering you that you think the audience may also want to be apprised of, to hear. This was your time to speak. And then he also realized, and this is very important, and this was the third part of the Legal Night program, was that many people want to speak with an attorney, but you don't want to speak in front of everybody. You want to speak one-on-one, confidentially. And that's fine. And we do have that in this program. And that's the third part of the program. When Michael wanted, again, you to have that flexibility to speak with an attorney one-on-one, and we'd be available for you with the understanding that, just because a lawyer speaks to you, that doesn't establish the attorney-client relationship, which is very important. So you understood that, the attorneys here will talk to you, but we don't have that attorney-client relationship. Not yet. Later on down the line, if you went and retained an attorney, that was different. But we were here just to give general information, to give guidance, really to point you in the right direction. And also, Michael thought, look, now is an opportunity for you to mingle with others, make and meet new friends and socialize. And this was an opportunity for you also. Wanted to do everything for the individuals, for this community. Loved this community, and this community really loved him. In essence, the goal of Legal Night has always been to level the playing field. That's really what it's all about. Unfortunately, there is a lot of misinformation out there. Misinformation by the people that don't want you to exercise your legal rights. I say it's the insurance companies, big businesses, municipalities, whether it's the city, the state. And by having these forums, we want to spread the word to level the playing field, because they certainly have their position and we want you to have your position. And that's really what we've tried to accomplish. I think we've tried to do it. And Michael spent so much time and gave so much energy doing this that we all decided about a couple of months ago that we had to rename. It used to be Thursday Nights Legal Rights. It was a little expression. It was a jingle. But it's now the Michael A. Hardy Legal Night. Really an honor and tribute to Mike Hardy. And we really thank you, this group, for your attendance, because without you, we really don't have a legal night. So we ask you that if you like what you're hearing, speak to Patrice, speak with one of us. And if you don't like what you're hearing, as Michael would say, there's only one person here to speak to. He's in the back, my good friend, and maybe he'll stand up and raise his hand. Arthur? There's the man. If you have any qualms, he's the one to speak with. He does such a great job. We love him. But speak with him if you have any gripes. All right. Thank you really very much for coming here. Um, you know, Judge Edwards really presented and put together this program. We can't thank her enough, and she really wants to say a few words really about policy legislation and how that was important and how policies change really due to the efforts of civil rights attorneys, more particularly Mike Hardy. So, Judge Edwards again.
Hi again, everyone. It doesn't leave me with much to say in terms of Michael as the person and his uniqueness. He was extremely unique as a civil rights attorney. I said it again before, and I'll say it one more time. The first reason he was unique is that he served as general counsel of this organization. He was in 2008. It was founded in 1991, so I'm going to say 33 years. And when you are the general counsel of an organization, especially a leading civil rights organization, there's the day to day operations of the corporation, of the organization. You have to make sure that the board, the members, and everyone else don't have any legal issues that they're sometimes confronted with. Michael was a genius at bringing together attorneys to support the cause, the struggle in civil rights work. That he was very, very great at doing. But what I'm really going to focus on him is the Fourth Amendment. How many of you are familiar with the Fourth Amendment? Okay, good. And I'm going to tell you, it's a very, very important amendment in the Constitution, and it gives every single person the right to be free of excessive force when there's an arrest, there's a stop, there's a seizure, anything involving a police officer and even a peace officer. You have the right to be free from anybody using excessive force to detain you or arrest you. Nan is very internationally and nationally known for dealing with these civil rights cases. I'll say it again: Sean Bell, Abner Louima, Eric Garner, Dorsman. Uh, Usman was probably his favorite, one of Michael's that he was passionate with. Nan also was involved in George Floyd, the more recent cases, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Okay, and in those cases, one of the things that I realized that I'm studying, there's a strategy, and that strategy was built from the 1965 marching, even prior to all that. They rallied, they marched, they protest. These were peaceful marches. In 2012, Nan hosted a very, very big march, a silent march. And at that march, that's the first time that I really realized how significant Michael role was at marches. He never got into the crowd, he never marched, he never mingled, he never talked. He stood to the side. And one day I asked him, well, what are you standing over here for? Right? Why aren't you in the middle of the march? I'm a young attorney, don't know what's going on. And he said, it's my role to make sure that it's peaceful, and if there's arrest, the marchers are released very, very soon. That was a very important role. Another role that he had and he worked and he did really hard with, he was appointed in 2014 to that raise the age panel by Governor Cuomo. That was a very, very important panel in our community because in our community, unfortunately, too many young children were being sentenced, and they were young, less than 16, 17 years old. They were sentenced as an adult, and when you have to do crime as an adult, that's a game changer for a lot of people. But he also influenced a lot of legislation. One of them was the Eric Garner. Which one is it? the Eric Garner Chokehold Act. It was passed in 2020, and it was passed after George Floyd. And again, I say there's one common denominator with all those National Bar Association attorneys who I'm speaking about. That's Ben Crump, that's Lanita Baker, that's Breonna Taylor's lawyer, that's Chris Stewart. That common denominator, and they employed the same strategy: march, protests, massive use of the media, and especially with the new media to get our word across. And then, if many of you who come to NAN every Saturday, you see every elected official that who's running for office come through NAN. I am told that Reverend Sharpton is on the campaign trail down with one of the presidential candidates. So when you can attract different elected officials, which NAN does, and Michael was a legal strategist. I didn't say this, Reverend Sharpton said it, that he was the architect of the movement and getting these legislations passed. So why do I say that he's probably the leading? Because you have a lot of individual attorneys who win cases. So when you win cases, there's one person or family that will have direct benefit of money from those cases. But when you pass laws or you can affect the change of laws, such as the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act from the Civil Rights era, and the 1968 Fair Housing Acts, all of us benefit. So Michael hands touched a lot. He did a lot. He really, really focused more on legislation. Although he was involved with some of these cases, he wasn't the lead attorney per se. Some he co-counseled, but he advised Nan and Reverend Sharpton in how to move to make sure that there are laws that protect all of us. And that's important. So Michael, for that, he's going to live on forever. For this, he's going to live on forever because there's been over 500 legal nights since he started. He's impacted the lives of many. He's helped to commute sentences, and he's helped to make sure that people were exonerated. I heard that we have the Central Park Five, that was also happened, the exonerations on Michael's watch. So make sure that we continue to remember him and to lift him. And one of the things that I asked Joe to do, and hopefully if any of you can share your experiences and how you benefited from Legal Night, that will also help me capture the essence of Michael as a total civil rights leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Edwards. One of the things that I picked up hearing Judge Edwards speak was about Michael with the rallies and Michael with the marches. And that's really an important issue because it shows Michael in a different light. It shows him as as a protector of civil rights. And with that in mind, I'd like to call Rob Bellinson to speak a little about Mike and his role in terms of being a protector. Rob is an excellent attorney, a colleague, friend of mine that I've known for quite some time, and he's also given a lot of his time here at Legal Night speaking to the group, and really it's a pleasure to introduce Rob Bellinson on this issue.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can everyone hear me? Good evening, good evening. I stand on the shoulders of Michael Hardy, and I'm sorry I didn't get to know him better, but I was privileged to see him here, how he had just a golden touch in talking to people and helping people navigate and understand the law and how it applied to them. I'm actually speaking tonight for a colleague named Wiley Stecklow, who worked with Michael back on a case that you may remember from 2000, Sean Bell. Let's go back a generation now to November of 2000 when the police killed Sean Bell the night before his wedding. And the legal case didn't turn out too well, but Mr. Stecklow and Michael Hardy and the Rev went to work, and they organized, and they protested, and they called attention to this injustice, and they made a difference. They made a difference. They helped people who were arrested in demonstrating. There were 187 people who were arrested, and each one of them were represented by Michael Hardy and Wiley Stecklow. And they carried the ball forward in furtherance of justice and in furtherance of fairness. And when I think of Michael Hardy, that's what I think of. I think of a man who was doing the work, carrying the ball forward and making a difference. And his time on earth was cut short. But those of us who were here tonight, we are proud to carry on his legacy, to help make a difference, and to participate in Legal Night. Thank you for being here tonight, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Rob Bellinson. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce you to another colleague, another friend of mine who has been one of the original Legal Night attorneys, been here for so many years, has done so much for this community, has done so much for Legal Night. To speak about Mike in a different aspect now, Mike was a humanitarian. I'll speak plainly with not fancy words, and I'm just going to say he was a good guy, a real good guy. And with respect to that, I want to introduce you to Jack Giordano to give his thoughts on Mike.
Gosh, it's kind of late. I'm sorry. It's very difficult to follow the distinguished jurists and incredible counselors of the law. Some days I'm a lawyer. Some days I'm an attorney, and maybe some good days I'm a counselor. But I definitely agree with Attorney Russell that Michael was always a counselor. Joel asked me, can I talk about Michael as a humanitarian? And I had the good fortune of being a dear, close friend of Michael, as well as one of the volunteers for Legal Night. And, we got to be very close. And when I was asked to talk about Michael as a humanitarian, I just, that's a tough one, actually. It's a very broad topic. And, how do I talk about Michael as a humanitarian? So my wife, my better half, who's a dear friend of Dr. Robin Brown, who Michael's dear wife. Could you stand up, Camille? Stand up, honey. Oh, you're on. Okay, you're recording. Anyway, so Camille read me the lexical definition of humanitarian. And by the way, we have another distinguished guest here tonight. That's Steve Hansen. Steve, you can stand up. Steve is close friend with Michael for 50 years. I had the pleasure of meeting Steve and all of Michael's wonderful friends. His circle of friends also shines light on the type of human being and humanitarian that Michael was. So, after Camille said, look, this is what a humanitarian is, talk about it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to try to be very, very brief. Please bear with me. I'm going to skip a lot. I did write a few things down. But I want to start with an article that was written in the New York Times in 1998. And it was at a time when Reverend Sharpton was not so much an inside man as he is now. He's an inside man, I suggest, because he is inside of the halls of power in the United States. he wasn't always inside. He was way outside. And in matter of fact, I think in 1998, he was often pilloried, he was reviled, he was vilified in the media. But he stuck to his convictions and he had a clear vision of what he wanted to accomplish. And here we are today. And if I'm not mistaken, Reverend Sharpton and Michael Hardy, along with him, not so long ago, were often inside the halls of power, but representing the people who are not inside the halls of power. But that's where that was the core, and is the core of the source of his humanitarianism, Michael Hardy. So in 1998, the New York Times wrote, quoting Michael Hardy, "I really do believe that Sharpton is going to be one of the most important political leaders of the next 50 years." This is what Michael said of Reverend Sharpton back in 1998. "There are people who come along who have been blessed by some greater power. And whether you want to call that God or the universe or whatever, Sharpton is blessed." Michael Hardy recognized that back at that time, and he was very prescient to recognize that. And not only that, but he shared that vision, he shared that conviction, and that was the source of his humanitarianism right there in a nutshell. And he never faltered from that. To the day he died, every last breath, there was no hot air. It was fearless conviction and fearless just fighting for the rights of people who often did not have people fighting for them. And I think that's one of the things that makes me so humbled and proud to be part of this group of attorneys who come here and give some of their time to try to help people who often do not get a chance to be helped by attorneys, and just to be listened to and understood and given voice and represented. And that's what Michael Hardy stood for. And the last legal night, I want to say, it was shortly after Michael died, and we were with Michael to the end. I shared some of the personal stories about that last time, and it was very, very difficult. It was very fresh, and it still is very fresh. But I'm kind of happy tonight, I have to say, because I recognize that the conviction and spirit that Michael held with his partner, you know, his road dog, his road warrior, you know, Reverend Sharpton, that's going to carry on. And think about where we are right now in our history. We're on the precipice here, 2 weeks away from a bitterly fought, absolutely divisive election. It is a turning point in our nation's history. And more important than ever is the conviction, the vision, the humanitarian purpose that a man like Michael Hardy and a man like Reverend Sharpton shared in what they do for us, for the people, for people who are often forgotten about, vilified, pilloried, scapegoated, blamed. That's what Michael Hardy fought for all his life. And that's what we can continue on his behalf. I want to read another quote from the New York Times, if I can find it. And someone mentioned that Michael Hardy, I think it was Justice Tingling, that he was a warrior. And that's one of the things that came to my mind too, because I saw Michael fight all the way to the end on the phone with Patrice when he could barely talk, taking care of National Action Network business and kicking the doctors out of his hotel room, getting ready to, throw a roundhouse or something to get him out so he could take care of business. In 1998, the New York Times wrote, "There are times when Michael A. Hardy plays the court jester, diffusing tensions at a certain trial with cunning quips and loopy asides. There are times when he prefers the part of statesman, presenting himself as the calm, reasoned, and reasonable ballast on a legal defense team that is easily rocked. Then there are times when Hardy, a bearish man with a booming baritone, chooses the role of warrior, and anyone in his path would be wise to take cover." Let's not forget about that. Let's make them feel like they better be wise to take cover. God bless you all.
Okay, thank you, Jack Giordano. We are going to go to a second part of the program where you can ask questions, and this is really what we're here for. It's something Mike wanted. But before we do that, I'd like to ask the audience here, if there's anybody here that doesn't mind just coming up and speaking from your heart, speaking about what you remember about Mike or what he may have done to help you, help your family on anything. If those of you that have been here at Legal Nights before, have been here before, what you liked about this program, how it's helped you in any way. If there's anyone here that wants to share some words, the mic is yours, and come on up. Anybody? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, National Action Network, and to the honorable individuals here. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's a pleasure to be in your presence, and it's a pleasure to have you here tonight. My name is Damien. I'm the former youth director of the National Action Network, going back to 1997 at 1941 Madison Avenue. So I've got some longevity and some seniority in the organization. I've been around for a little while, although I do respect the seniority. I got the pleasure to meet Michael back, like I said, in 1996, 97. And it was a moving experience to meet Michael because many people only know Michael as the attorney, but I was able to know Michael as the journalist, the actor, the writer, the theologian, the thinker, the attorney, the activist, the friend, the uncle. And one of the most memorable moments I've had with Michael is back when Amadou Diallo was murdered in the Bronx. And I believe it was February 3rd or February 4th, which was my grandfather's birthday. My grandfather called me and said, "Dang, Amadou Diallo just got shot." And he made me aware because I used to get all my news either from my grandfather or from everybody else because I would always be running around. So I would get news from folks. And so I went down to Wheeler Avenue and I met with Michael. And I stood by Michael's side pretty much throughout the entire protest regarding Amadou Diallo. And I led the prayer vigils outside of the 161st Street Courthouse the entire duration of the time that we were protesting the murder of Amadou Diallo. But to kind of fast forward it a little bit to the day of outrage on Wall Street, it was my job to get to Michael all the list of the names of the individuals who were arrested on that particular day so that he can make sure we all got out of jail. And it was just so funny because my initial job, well, I don't want to say job, but my initial movement of the day was to get arrested along with Reverend Sharpton, Dr. Y.T. Walker, Ron Daniels, I forgot who else was in the paddy wagon. Just for the sake of time, I'm gonna keep it moving. But I remember being directed in so many different ways and having to jump over barricades and through side streets and everything else just to get to Michael. And it was so funny because I was looking down and I tied my shoe and I looked up and there goes Michael. He said, here goes the list. And he looked over to the left, and I did too. And there was Reverend Sharpton, Dr. Wyatt Walker, the whole gang. He said, all right, now you go on and get in line and get arrested. So that was my story with Michael. So, Michael, I miss you. And may God bless Michael, Robin, his extended family, the National Action Network, and God bless Legal Night.
Thank you.
Great story. Thanks a lot. But I got to tell you, I don't even think you were born in 1996. Come on, what's your secret? Okay. All right. That's right. That sounds good to me. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else want to say anything?
Share your memory.
Hi, my name is Lenore, and I'm speaking my first name in Gloucester Shore. I've been coming here for National Action Network for almost 4 years, and when I met Michael Hardy, you know what I'm saying, he seemed like he was very determined. He wanted to really help people, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he's been trying, you know what I'm saying, and he's been working on certain things. But I told him, I said, you just need some more lawyers. You know what I'm saying? So he said, well, I'm gonna think about that. I gotta work on that, you know. So I decided to try to, you know, understand about him, but he was just a good lawyer.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm mad because I want to see him again. You know what I'm saying? And we all gonna miss him, but God bless his soul. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
Thanks, Lenore.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to share anything in public?
One of our lifetime members is Issaline Carson.
Alright.
Good evening.
I'm a lifetime member, and I've been with Nan, I guess, from the start. I'm Issaline Parson, and I would like to say, any little issue I had, and I went to Michael, he never turned me away.
That's right.
He never say he was busy and he couldn't help me. And I want to say I miss him so much because he helped me in any way.
That's right.
And, you know, it's just so sad to know that any little issue I have, I can't come to Michael. There's not Michael.
Mm.
And so hopefully someone else in the network will take his place to give me the help that I need.
That's right. We got you.
And so thank you.
We got you.
Thank you very much. And you know, this whole organization will help you. You have a family over here. We'll all try to help you. Good evening.
I didn't know Michael that well, but he knew some of my situations that I'm dealing with. And he just always gave you a look of confidence and perseverance to never give up.
That's right.
And I just want to say that I hope we have a new movement to try to really stamp out cancer with cryogenics.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else we have here? You want to come up? Okay.
And I didn't know Michael well. I see him, he was quiet, helping people out. I knew very little of him, so, but when I see that he was very nice, caring, and concerned about whatever's going on in the world. And I will miss him. I wish he was here longer, and I could get to know him more better. And but anyway, may he rest in peace.
That's all right.
And we all miss you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say something or? Okay. Okay, Steve, right?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
I just wanted to say that I was fortunate to be Michael's friend, and we had met back in 1979, and long before he became a lawyer, and those were different times in New York, and we had a lot of fun together, and we cemented our friendship. And for 50 years, we were friends.
Wow.
And Michael always showed up when he said he was going to, which is something I think about now because he's not with us. And this place just is full of Michael. When you sit here and you know the work that's being done and the good fight that's taking place, I'm so proud of him, and I'm glad that we all knew him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chaplain Sandra Mitchell. I didn't know Michael as a friend, but I knew him as a guide. I'm a mental health counselor, and when I was going through what I was going through, he just talked to you logically and matter-of-factly, and he made things simple. So a lot of that stress would just fall right off. I looked forward every Saturday to listen to his voice and listen to what he had to say and how he is the human connector, because through Michael Harding, I met Joel Schmelken, and I had a workman's compensation case. I didn't win it until I connected it with Joel Schmelken. I lost everything. But Michael Harding talked to me with just logic, plain logic and common sense. And all the confusion and the hurt and the dismay just went away. Listening to Michael Harding every Saturday morning gave me a sense of confidence to know that there's nothing too hard that I can't figure it out as far as law is concerned. Study to show yourself approved, he told us. And he brought Judge Tingling here, and he was explaining the law to us. It was so simple. And I felt like I could do it, listening to Michael Harding with his teachings and all who he brought here, like people like yourself. I have so much respect for you. You come here and you give of yourself and you give of your heart, and it's your calling to slice through the wicked practices and law and illegal things that they do to us as the people. And it's not easy. And I appreciate when you come and people ask you questions and you make things so simple that, you know what, maybe I can get through this. You know, it's not as hard. It's hard, but I can get through this. It's what you do. So I want to say thank you to the spirit of Michael Hardy, our counselor, our friend, our warrior, and he has implanted his spirit in each and every one of us who heard his voice every Saturday morning. I want to say to the panel that listening to you might not have had a problem at that time, but listening to you explain the law and how it works and how it doesn't work and how it works against you, what to do, makes me feel empowered to stand in housing court for someone else who has a case, and to look at the law and to study the law and to know that I can teach the law just like he did, so just like you do. And so when you give of yourself like the way that you do, you don't know how much of an impact that you're making in over 100,000 listeners. That they say, oh, legal, now I have to come here. They're online, they're on the Zoom, they're here in person, and we're learning, and we're stronger because of you. That's Attorney Hardy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. And sure, would you like to come up?
Oh,
I beg your pardon? How old was he? 21 plus is what we were supposed to say. He was too young. He was too young.
everybody. I'm Renee Harrison. I've been coming here for a while, off and on. I have some health issues. But when I first started here for legal night, Michael Hardy made me feel like I was on top of the world. Emboldened, take the bull by its horn. I then met you, Mr. Schmelkin, through Mr. Hardy. And I tell you, I brought my girlfriend to you, Jeanette Young. And it just seems like now everywhere I turn, people are asking me for legal advice. And I'm not attorney. I'm not attorney. I sent the gentleman here. I was in the hospital September 25th. Didn't make it to legal night. I planned on being here because that was the first month coming back after losing Michael. The gentleman came, Carp City, trying to get rid of him. He done been there for over 10 years. He ascertained an attorney, started his retainers fee payment plan. And I said, because you followed my directions, doesn't the stress lift off your shoulders? He said, yes, Renee, I want to thank you. So he started coming here. But like I said, when I have a problem, I know how to get on the phone with you, Mr. Schmelkin. My old schoolmate who's not here tonight, who went to St. Aloysius with me. But y'all have really taught us. Whatever we don't know, come to you. You will help us navigate through the difficulties. And Mr. Hardy, as you may rest in peace, you're always in my heart, my prayers. This place, you just feel his aura in here. And he's at peace. And we're going to let his legacy keep carrying on.
That's right.
And if I don't come on Saturdays, I do it virtually a lot now. I try to come for legal night once a month. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for coming by. Okay, would you like to come up?
That's Denise.
That's Denise hiding behind the mask. I recognize her.
Good evening and family.
Good evening.
Never been easy since the word came out. I met my brother in 85.
Talking to my.
Doing the Fulani days. And he sanctioned me being hospitality host of his house. And I have never in my life met more peace, honest, no whole bar. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. No whole bar. Michael Hardy gave no shorts and took no shorts. He was an upstanding, upright friend, brother, person. And he held this house down like nobody could. My fondest memory of Michael Hardy was one Christmas. He worked the floor with me. My job was to make sure that the towel was always clear. And when I looked around and saw Michael Hardy standing with me, clear the aisle, clear the aisle, clear the aisle. He said, come on, we're working together today. Clear the aisle, clear the aisle. We had a ball that day, spiritually. All the years I had known him, that day we connected so well when we was working that out together. And that's when Father's been and he would never, ever be forgotten. Never, ever. And before I bust out crying, everybody have a good night. God bless you and get home safe.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So if no one else has any comments they'd like to speak about Mike, and anyone has general questions, this is your part of the program for you to come up to the mic, ask away whatever's on your mind, whatever issues you may have. The only thing we tell you is that please try to keep things confidential. There's no reason to name names. If you have a suit that you're involved with now, don't mention your adversary, the other person, but speak in general terms if you'd like, if you have any questions. Now's your time. So come on up one at a time, anyone that has any questions.
No questions. Let's go home. Oh, just kidding.
Hello, everyone. So I just want to say something really quickly. So this is our last legal night of 2024. We're back in January. Attorney Smelkin will give you guys that date. But I want you to put your hands together for Attorney Smelkin, Attorney Giordano, Attorney Bellison, and all of the justices. But hey, y'all can do better than that. Put your hands together. They've been with us the entire year. God has given them health and strength, and we're grateful for that. I just want to say one thing. You know, I've had the privilege to work with Attorney Michael Hardy for the last 4 years directly. So we would have legal night, and he would say, "See, Patrice, my office was adjacent to Attorney Hardy's office. So in order for him to get into his office, he had to always cross me. So yes, it's been a hard moment, but I think about it. And every day he would tell me, Patrice, I'm going to get stronger, but I need you to learn this. Patrice, I'm going to get brighter. I need you to learn this. So I've learned as much as I could from Attorney Hardy. And every day that we stand, every last Thursday of the month, that we stand in here, every day that people come in and talk to me about crisis, and we try to work it out. I remember when Hardy told me, if you just give a person 5 good minutes, just listen to them. Sometimes we are the last resort. As Attorney Hardy would say, we are the 911 for the community. They feel like there's no other hope. They come here and we figure it out. I want to also invite you guys on Thanksgiving Day and on Christmas Day right here at the House of Justice. We have a Feed the Community. We have wonderful food. We give out toys in Christmas, but it's more about the community, right? And I also want to encourage you. I know the last voting date is October 26th to be registered to vote in this election. And I know so many things, so many politics, so many things are going on. But as Reverend Sharpton stands up here every Saturday and says, it's not about who you like, it's about who like you and who cares about the future for us, for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Who cares about that? And that's the main thing. Please do not let November 5th, do not get up and just sit in your house. Go knock on your neighbor's door. You know that same friend that you take for the Black Friday Christmas shopping and Thanksgiving shopping, all of that good stuff, right? That's what you do. You call people and y'all go 10 and 10. I need you to take those same 10 people with you to the vote. Because if you realize that once God says so, that our VP, you know, and we're nonpartisan here and there, so we don't endorse candidates. But once the Lord says, you know, Inauguration Day is actually on Dr. King's birthday in 2025. So we're praying that there's a miracle, there's a shift in the atmosphere. But we ask you as you go day by day to keep our president and founder covered, keep him in your prayers. He's 70 years old. He turned 70 this year, and he lost 3 strongholds to his life. Attorney Michael Hardy, his father, and his brother. And imagine that on trying to still make sure that we make history on January the 20th. So keep Reverend Sharpton. It takes a toll on you. But I thank God because he's been so busy, he hasn't really had time to sit and dwell. Even if you looked at the opening video, it took him a moment to really realize, like, Attorney Michael Hardy is really not here with us. But I know he's watching over us, especially down on legal night. He's shining upon us, and he's very proud and very happy. And as long as Reverend Sharpton said there's a National Action Network, there will always be the Michael A. Hardy legal night. Thank you guys. I cannot thank all of the attorneys and justices enough for the amazing work. I cannot thank Ashley Sharpton for the amazing work of coordinating this along with JT Challenger. Thank you, Mr. Winston Gilchrist. Thank you. It takes a lot of work to try to get people here. And, you know, we have attorneys that have their own cases and court cases, but we thank each and every one. And again, Reverend Sharpton wanted to be here tonight, but he's traveled 3 different cities in Detroit today. So we ask you to keep him lifted. Make sure you do not let his efforts go in vain. Rev is 70 years old, still traveling in this country to make history. We have to make him make history. Get to those polls November 5th. Do not write in Donald Duck, but put in the choice. And remember, always do your research. Everyone has smartphones, I pray, in 2024, right? Go to Google your candidate. Make sure that they care about us, not you just liking them because they had on your favorite color. No, like them for the policies. And they talked about that earlier. Like them for what they're going to do for this community. Like them that they're not going to cancel health care. Like them that they're going to get guns off the street. Like them because mental health services will continue under their presidency. That's what you like a candidate for. And thank you again. And I just wanted to wrap it up by saying that. Have a good evening, and let's be great and bring in the next Black African-American woman president for 2025. Attorney Smelkin, you can take us home with the next State of Legal Night.
Okay, so some of us will hang around here. If you have any questions that you want to speak about, that's fine. The next legal night will be on January the 30th, 2025, which is, 3 months from now. But one thing that I want to mention to you, and I say this all the time, is you don't have to wait 3 months just to come here to the National Action Network. This is an organization that's open 24/7. You can always call. You can always stop in. And those of you who have never been to a rally, a Saturday morning rally, I say this all the time. It is a treat and a privilege to come over here 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. You don't need a ticket. You don't need to be a member. Just come by. You'll hear Reverend Sharpton speak about current events, about civil rights. And I always say it's like having 10 cups of hot coffee. It'll give you the jolt that you need to make it through the week. It's a pleasure. Be here. And, bless you all, okay? Thanks a lot. Take care.
And have a good night. Get home safe. If any of you need to speak to us here at the House of Justice, you can always reach us at hoj@nationalactionnetwork.net or call us at 877-626-4651. 877-626-4651. Thank you for joining us and have an amazing night. We'll see you on Thanksgiving Day. Thank you.